All right, Coach Kniffin, 2024 was an amazing season for you and the Eaters as you returned to the NCAA Men's Volleyball Championship for the first time since 2018. But what are your thoughts on the team's accomplishment last season?
It felt like that's always the competitive objective, and it was good to be back on that stage. I don't. For me, the difference between 23 and 24 was I felt like we were a similar team with similar credentials, and we just happened to be the NCAA tournament in 24. But, those are two top 5 seasons back to back for us, and that's a comfortable place. That's where we're aiming for, is to be relevant in that zone.
How about for you, Hilir, going through that season and battling the way you did to get to that the semifinal match over in Long Beach?
Yeah, and I thought it was a very fun season last year. We had, I honestly remember more of the big wins than the worst losses. So that's a good point. But the team last year was very competitive, and it was very steady. And we knew exactly what Chu was gonna do. We knew exactly what CPA was going to do before the game even started. So there was just so much trust in the team that made it way easier to play, and it was just going better game after game. So I feel like by the end of the year we were at the peak.
It was an exciting semifinal in Long Beach and pushing UCLA to the limit, but wow, what a way to come through the Big West Championships, get the berth into the NCAA tournaments and battle through. That crowd was amazing. Can you talk about that experience in the moment as you actually had to start off with some challenges with one of your athletes in a kill going down real early and having to make that adjustment, but it still was such a phenomenal match to witness. But I want to have both of you speak to both of your experience in that particular match.
We were able to see Akil go down. He was just so steady for us. It was at that point in the season where we had stabilized the lineup. We knew who we wanted out there as an opening move in that match, and everybody's just so reliable in that first set. I do love that we were able to pivot and shift quickly. I thought the team recovered really well. That was maybe more dramatic than we realized in the moment, the level of the injury, but just for the guys to go out there and say, okay, what's next? I thought that was just a great championship mindset. Ultimately, that didn't give us the result we were gunning for, but I thought the mindset was so good.
How about you, Hilir?
Yeah, obviously, seeing Akil getting injured, he was a very good player, but he was also one of my best friends, so it's obviously hurting to see him getting big injury. And same as CP and Shui, we knew exactly what he was gonna deliver, what he was gonna do on the court. So it was obviously tough because I honestly thought that was the best lineup we had. And I agree with Niff with the mindset thing. Right after he got injured, the boys huddled up and we were let's make sure that doesn't impact us, even though it's hard. Let's just think about the next point. And we ended up winning the set, so that was pretty good. Yeah.
Well, let's go on to after the national championship match or the national championship at Long Beach. It seems if you were a French Anteater from May through August, you were either the ABCA Player of the Year or defending French gold medalist. Can you two share about the connection of UC Irvine and Hilir, Player of the Year, and then we're talking about Anteater alumni Kevin Tilley on the French national team or French Olympic team winning gold medal. But what's that say about the culture of volleyball in France and UC Irvine's part in developing athletes after the Anteater experience? And let's go to you. We'll go with Niff on this one.
Sure. People ask all the time with the international guys that we've had come through here from, Tamir Hershko, who was a first-team All-American, Thomas Hodges, who just represented Australia on the beach in the Beach Olympics. Obviously, Kevin Tilley is a name, and I get asked often, how do you find these guys? And I think more important than any kind of like pipeline or what it says about how we develop players. It's just incredibly relational. And I think the thing that's been really neat about having been here for so long now is there is just kind of this ethos around our program that it's every story is so different with each international guy. You know, at the end of the day, Tilly was going to be successful wherever he went, you know, and I think the important thing for me is that I can go to a recruit and say, look, if you want to be one of the best players in the world, we're not going to hold you back. And so we're maybe not advertising on the front end like we can guarantee your development, but great players become great players because they know how to become great players. And I don't think we inhibit their development at Irvine. Case in point, you know, so I think the opportunity here is good. I think people recognize that, but I think it's also incredibly relational here. And so, you know, people know what they're signing up for when they come in. So I think that's more of a recruiting lens on it than your original question, Rob. But that is, I mean, when I think about what it is about this place, I think it's an incredibly relational place. And I think it's got everything that these guys need to develop. And then they go home to their federation teams. You have to give a lot of credit to the federation teams that are training these guys for the bulk of the summer months. I mean, I think the French Federation has done a great job with their youth players coming up through the years. You don't win an Olympics in the 4 years leading up to the Olympics. There are certainly critical elements to that period of time, but it's a much longer runway, I think, than people really appreciate when you're talking about national teams. That development starts very young, and I think the French Federation has demonstrated they do a great job with that.
Yeah. Well, Hilir, go ahead and speak about your accolades from last season. Obviously, the ABCA Player of the Year, amazing award. You had a phenomenal season. Can you comment a little bit on that?
Yeah. Obviously, coming into the season, I wasn't really expecting like any major things. I was just like vibing with the team and getting as far as we can with obviously the mindset of winning it all. But just like the couple first games and then later in the season, I felt like the team we had was very like consistent and really helped me to like bring my best. And I think I was doing a good job bringing the best out of each other too. So yeah, it was like super nice. And with Shuey, it was so consistent. You knew like who he was gonna set and you knew where he was gonna set it. So it made it way easier. Like it made my job way easier. Mm-hmm. But yeah, looking forward to running it back this year.
Great. Hey, Niff, this one's for you, and I know you alluded to it in your previous response, but I wanted to give a clear question out there. But you've had this just instinctual ability to do plug, play, and win lineups. You know, if something happens, you're able to find the right piece to put in there, like Andon, Kiriakou, and you just are able to make adjustments, and it's canny or uncanny how you're able to do that.
Yeah.
You talk about how you're able to tweak so many different lineups and then put a winning lineup on the floor.
Yeah, I mean, almost a winning lineup, right? Yeah, I mean, I think we have been able to stay relevant in large part because we have some really flexible athletes. You know, we have a team full of problem solvers. You know, I don't know that. Yeah, I think back on some of our most successful teams and the starting lineups that finished the year, and some of the guys that lifted up trophies, and they were not, you know, on anyone's top recruiting radar. But they come in and they learn how to be flexible. They're good problem solvers. We get some really intelligent kids here, and sometimes, you know, it's not that they're out muscling or even out, you know, out playing anyone. They're just kind of figuring out where they need to put their effort and their resources. So Andon's a good example of someone who came in and his role was very clear in what he needed to do in that match. Where I think about our 5-set loss in the outrigger last year, where, you know, we were just 10 minutes before the match, we had to make a decision on who was playing and who wasn't. We ran the old school 6-2 and ended up going 5 with, you know, at the time a healthy Hawaii team on their home court. And I think that just has to do with the fact that we have some really well-rounded volleyball players that understand how the game is won and lost, and, you know, obviously they have to execute at a high level, but I think it's some of that helps us.
It's all good stuff. I was actually thinking about that outrigger tournament when you ran that 6-2, watching on the feed. I'm like, oh my goodness, Carlos and Shuey, they're blocking.
Every volleyball fan was cheering for that one. At least everyone that played volleyball pre-2000.
Yeah. Well, let me jump here to our current season coming up in 2025. You returned some really good pieces, obviously, with Hilir and then Max Grigorev, and then you're going to have Joe Carlos back, the 2022 All-American, and of course the NAIA Player of the Year, Nolan Flexen. But what other pieces have you added to the Anteater puzzle that could see valuable playing time?
Sure. I mean, I think people will be excited to see a guy like Aiden Rigg getting on the court this year. You know, he's someone that redshirted for us last year, and just a well-rounded volleyball player coming out of we'll call it the school of the Outrigger Canoe Club. You know, just some great players that come out of there over the years, and just a very aware volleyball player. You got Shane Aitken, who I think you'll see on the court in that libero position. You know, he got the benefit of working with a Cole Power and a Brett Sheward all of last year, and there's a guy who's a sponge on our team. You know, it's him, and he just soaked that up for a whole year. I'd expect to see Ann and Kiriakou. You named some other names that are going to be, you know, household for us, and I would expect to see on the court. And then we got a couple just athletic freshmen that, you know, will be true freshmen that might fight for spots or time here and there. Micah Goss, I think, jumped out on some people's radar in the preseason stuff. So we'll see. You know, I think there's a lot that's uncertain this time of year, but it's a really neat group that's working well together right now. Obviously, for us to be great, our great players will have to be great. But I think we could reach a fairly stable lineup pretty quickly, and I think we could be fairly consistent. We'll lose a lot of tested maturity from last year, but I really like the learning curve of our young guys right now.
Right. And this one's for Hilir. Last year, you didn't get to be on the court a lot with Nolan, and when you guys were on the court, there were some pretty wicked lineups. Are you looking forward to spreading a little bit of the offense with Nolan?
It's a good question. We'll see. I mean, it depends if he plays good. He's allowed to have more balls, but if he's struggling, I think I'm gonna have a 1v1 chat with my setter and like let him know what to say.
A lot of gifts going the setter's way, apparently, huh?
Yeah. No. Seriously, I'm very excited to play with Nolan because he's just a super athletic guy. Like, I've never seen anyone like that, and like Nick said, he's a pretty aware volleyball player. So yeah, super stoked to have him on the court, and I'm very excited to see what he can bring to the table.
Yeah, and whatever people think they saw from Nolan last year, I think it's important to remember, you know, he was injured for a big chunk of the year. He really was a freshman in the league in the sense that he hadn't played Division I before. And then he just spent a bunch of time with the USA team training over the summer and got some nice playing time with them. So he's we probably should have had him sit on the other side of me for this call, but I think there's a good chance that Hilir learns to share a little bit more this year.
Yeah, sometimes it's good to share.
It's a holistic development here at UC Irvine. You know, we teach a lot of life skills.
Well, this one's for you, Niff. I'm curious, will Max Grigorev play every position this year, because he excelled at every single thing he did last year?
Yes, we'll try. I mean, we didn't give him a fair run at setter last year, and I've heard about that. So, you know, we'll see. With Shuey gone now, and you know, Rigg untested in the waters here, you know, Joe is chirping at me a little bit to see if we can get Max some 6-2 option. I think that would be interesting. But we'll see. You know, we'll just see. We'll see how the season unfolds.
Yep. Well, it's good to see him also first team All-American for the Anteaters. Now, let's go toward just a few weeks ago. In the preseason, you headed out to an exhibition match at Snow Canyon High School versus BYU, and that was part of a canned food drive with the community. Can you share about the match and how that all came about?
Yeah, the idea started years ago. I think you know, Sean and I have a great relationship, the head coach for BYU, and we had talked about, you know, boys volleyball potentially being sanctioned in Utah several years back, and so it was kind of a wait moment. Do we go out there before it's sanctioned to try to encourage it? Do we wait until it gets sanctioned? Ultimately, boys volleyball is sanctioned now in Utah, and we thought, gosh, this would be a neat year to do it. So they were real hospitable in helping us get set up out there. We had kind of a semi meet in the middle. I think it was a little bit farther drive for us, but you know, just this idea of let's meet somewhere and do something cool. And we had a great trip. We got some nice time in nature. We got some good time on the road with the boys, which is great in the preseason. And then we got to play a legitimate match in front of a bunch of, I would say, BYU heavy fans at a local high school. And it was great. It was just a good experience for everybody all around. And one of the really fun things with BYU, and maybe a little bit because it was a preseason match, was, it had that vibe of, we're going to go play a match on the court and compete. And at the same time, we realized we only keep these jerseys on for 4 years. And there was just a cool vibe around the two teams. And I think that's an important community moment for all these guys as we think holistically about the student athlete journey, but then the lifelong journey that happens after we take off the jerseys, and who knows who ends up in somebody else's company or traveling together or playing on a pro team together, and they get to look back on that experience in St. George, Utah that they shared, and that was pretty cool for us.
Really cool. Well, Hilir, let me ask you about the match play experience. That on their site is 3-1. I was looking for results, but what was it like to get back into the competitive juices, especially with a team as legendary as the BYU program?
Well, it was good. It was a very fun crowd. Besides the game, it was also a very fun environment to be in. It was my first time going there, and it's just super unique. It was awesome. But yeah, it was a good BYU team, but they just had their upper who was injured, who was coming back, so it was a little weaker. But it's a very good competitive BYU team. I feel like some people are gonna sleep on them, but I'm pretty sure they're gonna make some upsets and win some good games. So it was a nice test for us.
Great. Well, let's go to the start of your season. The Anteaters return to the UCSB Invitational. Nick knows it as E-Bar from back in his playing days, but always a great tournament. But you're going to be seeing some teams for the first time. I'm sure Stacy in the background will correct me if needed. But Missouri S&T, Tusculum, and newly admitted member of the MPSF, Menlo College. What are your thoughts on being able to go back and compete in Santa Barbara in such a great tournament? And we'll start with you, Hilir.
I think it's going to be a good start of season for us. Back to back. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, it's good because we might play 3 games in a row at the end of the year. I feel like the earlier we get the habit of playing 3 games in a row, the better it is for us. But it's also 3 teams that we never played before, so it's going to be completely new for us. So we're going to strategize and see how we're going to play them. But I'm very excited because it's my first time playing in the UCSB Invitational. So yeah, I want to see looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's a great place to start out the year too. Again, you get a little time on the road, and normally Santa Barbara's a day trip, so it's kind of cool to be able to go up there and get a couple of hotel nights, especially before school starts right when school starts for us. It'll be our first week of classes. But yeah, it's not really a tournament anymore. I think that's that changed years ago, so it feels more like kind of an East-West crossover deal, or conference versus non-conference opponents is another way to think about it. So Menlo coming down from Northern California, then we got a couple teams coming from a little farther east, and but a great way to open the year for us. It's just kind of weird because there's no real scouting to be done at that point, and I think that always catches us. We get so spoiled now with the video exchange and everything else. We feel like we get halfway through a season, we've seen everything everyone does, and we'll go in a little blind to our first couple opponents.
Good challenge for the coaching staff.
We're not on the court, so it's a good challenge for these guys.
Well, moving a little farther into the season, you immediately go into battle against MPSF powerhouses like BYU, Stanford, USC, Pepperdine, and back-to-back national champion UCLA. And then you even add on an early Big West 2-match series in Oahu. It's plain and simple. You've got a gnarly schedule to start off your season. I was looking like, wow, you're going to really go through the gauntlet here. So what are your thoughts on the competition after the tournament?
Well, you've been doing this for long. This shouldn't surprise you anymore. I feel like this schedule is really
sell it to our viewers and listeners.
That's really, and I get that comment where people are like, wow, you guys have a really tough schedule. It's like, yeah, we always schedule as tough as we can because it's the most fun way to do it. If we're going to go out and play matches, we want to play the most meaningful, challenging schedule we can. And part of that is certainly preparing for the end of the year push, because that is the competitive objective, and it's nice to be tested against everyone. We accept the fact that, over the last decade, we've absorbed probably more losses, and sometimes it works out where, because of the schedule, we get the nod to go in as an at-large bid, and then the counter argument to that seems to get just as quickly utilized as, but look how many losses they have. It doesn't change the fact that we ultimately can't control outcome. What we can control is the mindset and the intentionality of how we set up a season. And I love how we set up seasons here. I love that we play the toughest opponents. I love that we have great homestands. We expect to have great matches. I know that we're pressing really hard. Our home opener this year is BYU, and we'd like to sell out the Bren. We don't do that often. It has happened before, but that would be a goal for us, and the BYU team seems to draw well when they're here. And then we're grateful that we've got Long Beach on Saturday this year at the end of the season, so kind of not end of the season, but getting through spring break, where that should be an iconic matchup at home. Mm-hmm. You mentioned we're going to Hawaii. That was because the Outrigger Canoe Club, Outrigger Hotels tournament, when Charlie wanted to run that, or when maybe they could run that, was in conflict with our original match date. Mm-hmm. So we opted to move out of the way of that so that we could just play them early, which is fine. I'm happy to do that. Charlie and I've got a good relationship when it comes to that stuff. So, but yeah, great schedule. We're fired up.
Well, Hilir Niff is saying this is great. How's it from the athlete perspective?
Well, if you ask me, I much rather play a tough schedule than an easy schedule. That was also one of the main reasons why I wanted to come to UCI, because it's also just like so much more fun. Like you don't come in with the mentality of, okay, it's gonna be like easy game, so I'll like whatever. Whereas when I play against like UCLA, Hawaii, I'm like, we don't know the outcome, so like let's just play our best and compete and see where that takes us. So it's just so much more fun and way more exciting. I'll do that every year.
Well, it's always a good time following you guys in the preseason, but it's pedal to the metal for the Anteaters. Are there any particular matches that you look forward to, Hilir?
Honestly, every single one, but I would say the last game of the season. Is it at the Bren on Saturday?
Yeah, that won't be the last match of the season. We'll finish out Santa Barbara North.
Oh, right. Yeah. So I'm looking forward for the last game of the season because
senior.
Yeah, senior night. And it's gonna be my last game at the Bren, which is pretty awesome. So I'm very excited for that.
Easy enough. One word description from both of you, what it's like to compete in the Big West.
Fun. I mean, I feel like we just used that word a bunch, so maybe that's not super creative, but
crisp.
There we go. The reason why I wanted to be all right, gentlemen. I appreciate your time today, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the Bren on Court 21.
Love it. Thanks, Ron.
Thank you.